The World Evangelical Alliance is an organization that represents a unified global constituency of over 600 million Christians. Dr. Geoff Tunnicliffe is its CEO and Secretary General, and we are pleased that in the midst of his globe-trotting, he's able to spend some time with us here on the couch. Welcome, Geoff.
Great. It's wonderful to be here with you all. Thank you.
So good to have you.
You represent us. Right?
That's right.
We're one of those 600 million. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Represent.
Yeah. Scary thought, actually. But,
wait, what are you saying, Geoff?
On which side are you saying that? Okay, now you talk to people of faith all over the world. What are you seeing?
I think one of the things that we're discovering is that when people think about faith and how it engages in society, there's a growing recognition that the faith communities do have something to contribute to the whole of society. And, you know, in some parts of the world where they've tried to secularize and cut out the faith element, we're now discovering that even those countries are opening up and saying, you know what, faith community is here, and they have something positive to contribute to our society, and that's the kind of the message that we want to engage in, and to realize that you can't separate out all the areas of life.
Well, to be a person of integrity, you really can't separate your faith life from your professional life, from your personal life. No. It is life you're living.
Yeah, we don't check our faith at the door when we go into the office, or we go into our workplace, or we go into the public square. We shouldn't be asked to check our faith at the door, and because that influences, our beliefs influences everything that we do.
I think people are afraid that Christians want to take over and make their country into a theocracy.
Right. And what I say is that, actually pluralism is our friend. And what pluralism is basically saying is this, that everyone has a place at the table. So we all want to contribute to building a strong nation. We want to build strong families, a strong workplace. And as Christians, we want to make that kind of contribution. We don't want to control the table, but we don't want to be excluded from the table. And so we're saying, just give us a place at the table, that we want to contribute in a positive way in the development of the nation.
And Geoff, you're also representing lots of women of faith that are rising up and making some waves and making a stand in the faith community around the world.
Absolutely. And there, you know, one of the great things about my job is I get to travel around the world and see so many different places and see women and men of faith who are making a profound difference. Stories that perhaps have never been heard, or who are living out their faith, whether in the marketplace or even in the public square, in politics, or trying to live out the biblical values. And that's really exciting.
But Geoff, you're traveling all over the world. You're meeting lots of different people. You're going into maybe places that are hostile to certain faiths. What are you finding as you're encountering people, and are they open to this idea of other faiths playing a role?
Well, I think it's partly breaking down the stereotypes that are there. You know, everyone stereotypes. The media stereotypes, and they describe sometimes Christians in certain ways. And I think by explaining more fully who we are as Christians, what we value and what we believe, is that actually begins to break down barriers. And it's about building trusted relationships. I've now built friendships with leaders in the Islamic world, for instance, who I can call friends. And we have differences, obviously, of belief, but we've built a trusted friendship and a trusted relationship. And I think we've got to start there. It's about building out of the context of trust. We can tell our story and convey what we believe in a way that's not threatening, that doesn't demand that. We're not demanding that people believe like us, but we simply want to give people an opportunity to believe what they want to believe, and desire to change their belief if they want to. And that's really what religious freedom is all about.
It's a human right.
It's a human right, and it's not just for Christians, but it's for all people of all faiths, that they have a right to believe. And so that's the kind of message that we're trying to present.
And one country, you know, Geoff, has really struggled with that, obviously, is Pakistan. Just giving those kinds of freedoms. You know, there's a story of Asia Bibi. She's a woman who's been convicted of apostasy, isn't it? That they're going to...
yeah, blasphemy.
Blasphemy, right. Blasphemy under their blasphemy laws, which many people believe is a false accusation. One of your friends who was speaking up about this was recently assassinated. Tell us about that.
Sure. Over the last few years, I've got to know a man called Shahbaz Bhatti. Shahbaz was a wonderful Christian guy, and he was elected into Parliament as an independent. And then the government asked him to come into cabinet, the first Christian who was a member of the Pakistani cabinet responsible for minorities. And Shahbaz was a man of great conviction, great passion, wanted to speak out for the underprivileged, the minorities, not just the Christian minorities, but to speak out and he saw himself as a vehicle for the message of Jesus, and wanted to live out his faith in that way. And but because he spoke out against the blasphemy law, which the president had asked him to look into, and he did. But you know, I had dinner with Shahbaz probably 5 weeks ago now in Washington, and he told me he was under great pressure. He said he had just received a call from the head of the Taliban in Pakistan saying that he was now #1 on their target list. Unless he changed his point of view, he was going to be assassinated. And I said, Shahbaz, I said, you understand what you're doing. You know, if you continue on in this role, the threats. He said, I'm prepared to pay the price. And you know, not knowing, you know, a month later he would be assassinated. I flew home from New Zealand into Vancouver, and I got an email from Shahbaz that day, maybe one of his last emails, and thanking us for our visit and looking forward to a time when we were going to be going to Pakistan to meet with him and the president and the cabinet in Pakistan. Well, that was on the Tuesday. The Wednesday morning, I wake up to find out that some gunmen had come along. He just left his mother's home and got into his car and had been assassinated. And the Taliban claimed responsibility for that.
But Geoff, what are the consequences of these things? I mean, is this death, going to just be yet another and then things move on? Or are you seeing a shift happening where these blasphemy laws, an environment where there will be more religious freedom?
Well, I think we have to say what is going to be the legacy of Shahbaz as we move into the future. And what we're saying right now to government leaders, we must pay attention to this. This kind of radicalism is not going to be acceptable. We can't build our healthy societies on this kind of approach. And so we're pleading with government leaders now to take seriously responding to this blasphemy law, in particular in Pakistan, asking it to be repealed, because it's a misnomer in many ways, and Asia, who's been charged with this, the truth is it was a conflict in a community. And so someone can say, well, I don't like my neighbor, so I'm just going to accuse them of blasphemy. And so it gets misused, and even the concept of blasphemy, I think, is problematic.
Geoff, it must be really humbling, for you, because you're with these kinds of people that are willing to lay their life down for human rights, for freedom of religion, for freedom of speech. And in North America, I don't think we really fully can comprehend or understand that I would lay down my life. I would be sitting at a place to, saying, hey, ladies, I think I'm going to die because I'm standing up for somebody who has rights. I mean, I can't comprehend it, but what is your experience being around those people?
Well, one, I think it challenges your own personal faith, what level of commitment you have. And I know with Shahbaz, in dealing with him, again, a person of great integrity. He was not a fatalist. He wasn't expecting. He
was pleading for his life.
Absolutely.
He wasn't on a death wish.
No. We actually, he asked us, one of the things that happened with Shahbaz was that every other cabinet member had an armored-plated BMW. He did not. So we were asking the Pakistani government, through other governments, to make sure that he got, because he said that, I'd like to have some more protection. And the fact that he didn't have that kind of protection, he might have been killed in another way, but so he wasn't a fatalist. But he knew clearly what the costs were. I mean, one of the reasons he chose not to get married, it was in his 40s. He said because of the commitment that he'd made, and that kind of commitment is significant, and it challenges your own personal faith and saying, what am I prepared to die for? What I'm prepared to live for, but what am I really prepared to die for?
But that's the call of Christ, Geoff. It's to come and die, like Dietrich Bonhoeffer has said, right? You come and die, and really when you die, you live. But I think it's hard for us to kind of comprehend that because we cling to life so tightly and we want to live. But I think that it's a good challenge for us.
Well, we don't face any risk here. That's I mean, we face the normal health risks or things that happen, but we don't face dying over our faith or over our convictions very often. That would be pretty rare. And I know I hope that one of his legacies is that we remember him. I mean, it was important to talk about him today because he's an example to us of what it really means to be a follower of Jesus, who himself laid down his life
well,
for others.
And you have a really good picture of what's going on in the world right now with the church. What area concerns you the most right now?
Well, again, I think there's lots of issues for me. As I look in general at the church across the world, my concern is that Sunday connects with Monday. What we hear on church, no matter where we are in the world, does it impact our day-to-day life Monday through Friday? Is our lives, are they transformative? And that's my concern. In some ways I never would have thought about using the word nominal evangelicals, but there is this rise of, people have these sets of beliefs, but does it really take root and transform our lives? And so and I think if we deal with that issue, is that our lives do become transformative, empowered by the Spirit, to make a difference. And if you're thinking, so that's one general concern I have for the church. In terms of the world, as I look at the complexities of the world, there's many, many different problems. But the issues around Pakistan and to me, geopolitically, that's one of the most challenging parts of the world that we have to look at in terms of what's happening in their society, the influence of faith in terms of building a Pakistan that's going to be a healthy member of the international community.
Mm-hmm. Now, it has to be transformative for you, your relationship with Christ, because you work on a world stage and world level, but it actually has impacted you personally, with you and your wife, in your own personal journey. Tell us a little bit about what's happening with you right now, Geoff.
Well, about a year and a half ago, our daughter, who was just after high school, decided to do what the Brits call a gap year, spend a year somewhere, and so she was in Rwanda serving, working with AIDS kids, and we've always tried to take our kids with us, and they've traveled with me, so they've gained a worldview, which I think has been wonderful. But my wife was over there visiting her, came back, was anticipating 3 weeks later going to Thailand with our son, who had a girlfriend in Thailand who had just been diagnosed with leukemia. And but she was going to be home for this 3-week period. But during that 3-week period, it was discovered by God's grace that they discovered it so quickly that she had ovarian cancer. And of course, that you're then confronted with all sorts of things. And someone that had a very full schedule. My trips were planned out, speaking engagements around the world. What do you do? Well, I stopped traveling. My board said, take a break, be with your wife, take time to work through this, because we didn't know what it was like. And so we're grateful that my wife Jewel had surgery. She went through the chemo and the radiation, but we journeyed together through that. And we're thankful for the health. She is now recovering. And I know what I've discovered, though, is in that process, it's very humbling. The amount of people that prayed for her and prayed for us as we went through that journey from around the world. Getting letters from pastors' wives in the Palestinian West Bank saying, I've gone through this, we're praying for you. Getting off a plane in China, and the head of the church in China saying, how's your wife doing? Because we've been praying for you. And so having that kind of support has been so crucial in our journey, very, very humbling. So we still are finding this new normal. My wife Jewel, who I dearly love and has been a life partner with me, and we've walked together in so many things. She's discovering a new voice in some ways in terms of how she speaks into people's lives, and she's allowed people to speak into her life. But it's a challenging. It makes the reality of our life very clear. When we think about our lives, we all have a beginning date. We celebrate that our birthday. And we all have an end date, and we're not quite sure when that's going to be. But in between, there's this thing called the dash, and how we live that life. And we're not sure how long it's going to be. For Shahbaz, it was only 40-some years. For my wife, when we were facing it last year, we're saying, it makes you think about that a lot. So it's makes you say, how do I live my life? How do I live to make a difference? What kind of legacy am I going to leave as, again, not being fatalistic, but saying, life is very short, and we don't have much time. So how am I going to live with purpose, with God's purpose in my life, to make a difference? And so we've wrestled a lot with those kind of questions.
Well, you know, you talk about the need for faith to be transformative in each of our lives, and I think when you hit a moment like that, that's where you have that choice. You're going to become better or bitter. You're going to get mad at God, or you're going to work it through spiritually. So you're doing all this for God. You're traveling the world. Your whole life is given to Him, you and your wife, and then this happens. How did you process that?
Well, I think, again, that's a great question, because you say, you know, Lord, I don't understand how this could possibly be happening. You know, at the height of, in some ways, of our ministry and the things that are happening, Lord, I'm really needed here, and you're saying to stay home, and the Lord sort of comes along and says, you know what, you need to take some time out. You know, it's okay. You know, you need to process this. You need to walk together through this and deepen your faith and deepen your understanding of who I am, and you need to trust me. No matter what the circumstances are. And, you know, there were lots of questions, and one of the great things that Jewel and I did, we journaled together. We wrote a blog together on almost a daily basis, telling the story. And, you know, the challenge is for us as Christian leaders sometimes is that, you know, sometimes very public. How do you tell some of your own private, personal journey that's filled with authenticity and not exploitative and not filled with platitudes of, you know, and so, you know, talking about those things I think is really important.
It comes from an authentic place in you because you have an authentic relationship with God. This isn't just your profession, your occupation to talk with churches and ministers, but this comes from a foundation of having God real and alive and living in you. And you've got the line of communication open. I just want to remind you that on the screen throughout this program is our prayer line. And if you want to start the line of communication between you and God, you can do that as well, no matter what you're going through. Geoff, don't go anywhere, because we'll be back with more Full Circle right after this.
One of the defining factors of manhood is how we handle the women that God has entrusted us to. I mean, here's a woman that had just been through relationship after relationship, and he didn't see any of the dirt, he didn't see any of the darkness, he didn't see the attitude or the way she was kicked around. All he saw was her beauty, and therein is the beginning of the understanding of the heart of Jesus.
Bruce Marciano is an actor who is known for playing the amazing part of Jesus in the film The Gospel of Matthew. Based on the encounters Jesus had with women, Bruce explores Jesus' heart for the women he knew during his time on earth, offering hope and a renewed vision for every woman today. Jesus, the man who loved women, is our thanks to you for your support of Full Circle. Order your copy today by calling 1-877-327-7100 or visit FullCircleTV.com.
And Cheryl, I know that we each have our very own copy of this book because it means so much to us, and I know it means a lot to you as well.
Oh, I won't let anybody borrow it. You know, lots of times we have books on the show and people want it, and I'm like, get your own copy, people. Yeah. One of the stories that really touched me in this book is he talks in the book, Bruce Marciano, you know, he's had a little fame, celebrity. He talks about what that's like, and he says, you know, it's so interesting. There's so many people around us whose giving goes pretty much unnoticed, let alone receives an accolade, and they just keep giving every day, bowing their pride, putting their needs and wants on a shelf. And he said, these are the true heroes and heroines. And he talks about the story in the Bible about the widow who gave her very last bit of money. They call it a mite. It was so small, not mighty, but mite. Yeah. And just how like Jesus noticed her and noticed her giving and how significant it was. Even though it was small, it was so big because it was such a huge portion of what she had. And that just blessed me so much because I know, and you know, there's times in your life where you're just giving and nobody notices, and you feel so unappreciated. And it's like Jesus notices. It's beautiful.
Well, especially as a mom. I know lots of moms, we give and give and give, but he notices, and that's the beautiful thing. And we really would like to get this book into your hands. Cheryl, it's our thank you, really, to the viewers for standing with Full Circle and helping to keep Full Circle going strong into the future.
Many of you have given to Crossroads, you helped launch us, but now we have to raise our own support. So when you buy this book, you'll be helping us. Yes. There's the information on your screen. You can call the number 1-877-327-7100 or go to FullCircleTV.com.
And we're back with Dr. Geoff Tunnicliffe. I know, Cheryl, you have one final question for him.
Yeah, you know, you talked about the dash, that time between birth and death, and making a difference in the world. And I know you don't have to be a Geoff Tunnicliffe, you don't have to be a Shahbaz Bhatti to make a difference. You see women, everyday women, making a difference in the world, around the world. Just tell us about that.
Well, I think you're right. I think everyone needs to wake up as a follower of Christ and say, you know, what am I going to do today? How am I going to live my life with purpose and God's purpose in my life? And if we just do that, if we say yes to the call of God in our lives, because God calls every one of us, and be willing to say yes, and knowing that He's there to give us the strength and the hope and the courage that we need, I think we leave the rest to God. God's responsible for the outcome, and that's the exciting thing. We don't have to worry about our legacy in that sense if we're just obedient to the call of God in our lives.
And it all starts with a relationship with Him, because you can't trust anyone you don't know, but you have to know Him first, and then you know that you can trust Him. And that's the bottom line that we always like to leave you with here on Full Circle. As well, always keep your eyes on Jesus. It is all about Him. Bye-bye.
You complete the circle. To send us your questions or comments, email us at fullcircle@crossroads.ca or interact with us on Facebook. You can also write to us at Full Circle, Box 5100, Burlington, Ontario, L7R4M2, or in the U.S., P.O. Box 486, Niagara Falls, New York, 14302.